Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. The night air at the Newman ranch carried a strange heaviness, the kind that settles in when something terrible has happened and everyone can feel it, even before the truth is fully spoken. Inside the living room, Nikki Newman paced back and forth like a storm ready to break. Her heels clicked sharply against the polished floor as Victoria stood nearby, watching her mother unravel. This time he's gone too far, Nikki snapped, her voice trembling with fury. Victor has completely lost his mind. Victoria frowned slightly. She had seen her mother angry before, but this felt different. There was real fear behind the rage. What happened? Victoria asked carefully. Nikki stopped packing and turned toward her daughter. He kidnapped Jack. For a moment, the room felt frozen in time. Victoria blinked, trying to process the words. He what? Kidnapped him, Nikki repeated bitterly. Victor actually abducted Jack Abbott. Victoria's jaw tightened. She loved her father, respected him even when others didn't, but this. That crossed a line. Nikki rubbed her temples, clearly overwhelmed. He's using Jack as leverage, she explained. He thinks if Billy and Phyllis believe Jack is in danger, they'll give Chancellor back to him. Victoria shook her head slowly. And how did you find out about this? Diane and Kyle, Nikki replied sharply. They came to me, they're terrified. Victoria walked toward the window, staring out at the dark ranch grounds. Her mind raced through possibilities. This situation is complicated, she said quietly. Complicated, Nikki exploded. Victor has kidnapped someone, there's nothing complicated about that. Victoria turned back toward her mother. I'm not saying what Dad did was right, she said carefully, but we have to acknowledge the people who pushed him into this. Nikki raised an eyebrow. Kane, Phyllis, Victoria continued. They've been manipulating things for weeks. Nikki crossed her arms. They may be manipulative, she said coldly, but they haven't kidnapped anyone. Victoria exhaled slowly. Then what about that AI program, she asked, the one controlling the corporate battle? But Nikki shook her head firmly. No excuses, this has gone far enough. Her eyes flashed with determination. And if Victor won't stop this madness, then I will. Victoria studied her mother closely. You think you can force him to back down? I know I can, Nikki said. Victoria hesitated. I don't approve of what Dad did, she admitted, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Nikki sighed deeply. He's avoiding me, she muttered. Every call goes straight to voicemail. Call him again, Victoria urged. Reluctantly, Nikki picked up her phones. The call rang and once again went unanswered. Nikki's patience finally snapped. Victor Newman, you listen to me, she barked into the voicemail. You stop this insanity right now, or I swear I will personally destroy whatever ridiculous scheme you've cooked up. She hung up angrily. Victoria watched thoughtfully. Mom, maybe we don't go after Dad. Nikki looked confused. Then who? Victoria's expression hardened. Phillies. Across town, society buzzed with quiet conversation and clinking glasses, but at one small table the mood was far from relaxed. Noah Newman leaned forward, anxiety written all over his face. I'm worried about my dad, he admitted. Across from him, Sienna studied him carefully. Because of Matt Clark. Noah nodded. Matt's dangerous, and my dad isn't exactly in perfect shape to deal with someone like that right now. Sienna hesitated. There's something else, she said cautiously. Noah noticed the tension in her voice. Oh, what? She glanced around before lowering her voice. Nick hasn't seemed like himself lately. Noah frowned. He's under stress. I know, Sienna replied gently, but the signs started before Matt Clark reappeared. Noah looked uncertain. What signs? Before she could answer, Noah's phone buzzed on the table. He picked it up. A text message appeared. Enjoy your empanadas. Noah's heart skipped a beat. He quickly stood up and rushed toward the window, scanning the street outside. Nothing. No Matt Clark. Just normal traffic. Then another text appeared. Noah read it slowly. His face darkened. He doesn't even know where we are, Noah muttered. What? Sienna asked. He's just messing with us, trying to scare us. Sienna folded her hands nervously. Working. Noah sat back down. Then he looked at her again. You were saying something about my dad. Sienna looked deeply uncomfortable. I don't want to accuse anyone unfairly, she said softly. Just say it. She took a breath. I think Nick might have a problem with painkillers. Noah froze. That's ridiculous. I'm serious, she said gently. He seems agitated, impatient, his mood swings are intense. Noah shook his head. Dad's just stressed. Sienna's eyes filled with emotion. My brother died from an overdose, she whispered. Noah went silent. I've seen the signs before, she continued quietly, and Nick is showing the same ones. Tears welled in her eyes. I wish someone had warned me about my brother sooner. Noah struggled to process everything. No, he finally said firmly, my dad has this under control. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. Meanwhile, at Crimson Lights, Nick Newman sat alone on the patio. He winced as he rubbed his injured leg. Pain shot through him. His jaw clenched. Slowly, he reached into his pocket. Inside was a small baggie. Fentanyl pills. Nick glanced around carefully before popping one into his mouth. Just as he swallowed it, is everything okay? Nick nearly jumped. Adam stood nearby, watching him closely. Nick forced a casual shrug. Just jumpy with Matt Clark out there. Adam studied him. You don't look great. Nick waved it off. I'm fine. Adam sat down. I remembered something, he said. Nick looked up. What? Where Riza used to live in Vegas. Nick immediately straightened. Give me the address. Adam shook his head. It's not that simple. Nick's irritation flared. Why not? Because I'm going with you. Nick laughed bitterly. No, you're not. Adam leaned back calmly. I can handle it. This is my fight, Nick snapped. Adam smirked. You sound just like Dad. Nick's jaw tightened. It's okay to lean on your brother, Adam continued. Nick glared at him. I'm trying to protect you. Just then Sharon appeared. What's going on, she asked. Adam answered immediately. We're going to Vegas to deal with Matt Clark. Nick sighed heavily. Sharon looked concerned. You're both serious. Adam nodded. If we don't stop Matt now, he'll keep hurting people. Nick hesitated. Adam looked him straight in the eye. Let's finish this together. Nick finally sighed. Are you really ready for that? Adam didn't hesitate. 100%. Later, Nick stood alone again on the patio. The fentanyl was already kicking in. His movements felt light, unsteady. When Sharon returned with drinks, he quickly tried to act normal. But he swayed slightly, then bounced up on his toes nervously. Sharon didn't seem to notice. I'm worried about Adam, Nick said quickly. He's stronger than you think, Sharon replied. Nick forced a smile, but his mind was already drifting. At Adam's apartment, Chelsea listened carefully as Adam explained his plan. You're going back to Vegas, she asked nervously. Adam nodded. I have to help Nick. Chelsea crossed her arms. You're revisiting your spider days. Adam exhaled slowly. That part of my life doesn't define me anymore. Chelsea stepped closer. But it could drag you back. Adam gently took her hands. I'll be careful. Chelsea's voice softened. I'm just scared. Adam pulled her into an embrace. It'll be okay. But as he held her, a shadow of doubt crossed his face. The early morning light began to stretch across Genoa City, but the tension gripping everyone involved showed no signs of easing. At the Newman Ranch, Victoria stood near the fireplace while Nikki slowly paced the room again. The silence between them carried the weight of what Victor had done. Finally, Nikki stopped and turned toward her daughter. I still can't believe this, she muttered. Victor kidnapping Jack Abbott, even for him this is extreme. Victoria folded her arms, her expression thoughtful rather than emotional. Dad believes he's protecting the family, she said. Nikki stared at her. That doesn't make it right. Victoria nodded slowly. I know, but we also know how his mind works. If he thinks someone is threatening the Newman legacy, he will do anything to stop it. Nikki sighed deeply and dropped onto the couch. I just wish he would answer my calls. Victoria walked closer. He won't, she said calmly. Nikki looked up. What do you mean? Victoria's eyes hardened. Because he knows you'll try to stop him. Nikki rubbed her forehead. And I will. Victoria paused for a moment before speaking again. Which is why we shouldn't waste time trying to change his mind. Nikki narrowed her eyes. What are you suggesting? Victoria leaned forward slightly. If Victor is using Jack as leverage against Billy and Phillies, then we attack the problem from the other direction. Nikki immediately understood. Phillies. Victoria nodded. She's the weak link. Nikki frowned. Phillies isn't exactly known for surrendering. Victoria gave a faint smile. True, but even Phillies has limits. Nikki waited. What kind of limits? Victoria's voice dropped to a near whisper. Her children. Nikki's eyes widened slightly. You're not suggesting we threaten them. Not harm them, Victoria clarified quickly, but make her believe she could lose them. Nikki leaned back, processing the idea. You think that would make her hand Newman Enterprises back to Victor's? Victoria nodded confidently. Phillies loves power, but she loves her children more. Nikki sighed again. You're playing a dangerous game. Victoria straightened her jacket. Which is why I'm flying to Milan tonight. Nikki blinked. Milan. Phillies has business ties there. If I move fast enough, I might find something we can use against her. Nikki studied her daughter carefully. You really are Victor's daughter. Victoria didn't respond, but the faint smile on her lips said everything. Across town at Society, Noah pushed his half-eaten plate away. His appetite had completely disappeared. Sienna watched him carefully. You barely touched your food. Noah rubbed his temples. Hard to eat when a psychopath is stalking your family. Sienna reached across the table and gently squeezed his hand. We'll figure this out. Noah shook his head. I'm more worried about what my dad might do. Sienna nodded slowly. You think he'll confront Matt Clark alone? Noah exhaled. That's exactly what he's planning. Sienna hesitated. And if what I said earlier is true? Noah looked up sharply. My dad isn't addicted. I didn't say addicted, she replied gently, but he might be relying on painkillers more than he should. Noah remained silent. Sienna continued softly. His agitation, his impatience, the mood swings. Noah stared down at the table. Dad had been through a lot. I know, she said, but those pills can change people. Her voice trembled slightly. I saw it happen to my brother. Noah looked up again. This time he didn't argue. Instead he asked quietly, what do we do? Sienna's answer came quickly. We watch him, and if things get worse, we step in. Noah nodded slowly. But inside, fear was growing. Meanwhile, at Crimson Lights, Sharon sat across from Nick on the patio. She watched him carefully as he sipped his coffee. You're really planning to go to Vegas, she said. Nick nodded. Matt Clark won't stop until someone stops him. Sharon frowned. You don't have to do this alone. Nick shook his head immediately. If I bring Newman's security, Matt and Riza will disappear before we get there. So you're just going to walk into danger by yourself. Nick forced a confident smile. I've handled worse. Sharon studied his face carefully. Something seemed off. His movements were slightly exaggerated, his eyes a little too relaxed. But she couldn't quite figure out why. You're sure you're okay? She asked. Nick nodded quickly. Never better. In reality, the fentanyl still pulsed through his system. His thoughts felt slower, looser. But he hid it well. Sharon finally sighed. Just promise me one thing. Nick raised an eyebrow. Oh, what? You'll come back. Nick reached across the table and squeezed her hand. This will be over soon. Sharon stood and pulled him into a tight hug. Nick closed his eyes briefly. For a moment, guilt washed over him. But the feeling faded quickly beneath the haze of the drugs. Across town, Adam stood in the living room of his apartment while Chelsea paced nervously. I still don't like this, she said. Adam sighed. I know. You're going back to Vegas, back to the place where everything fell apart. Adam leaned against the walls. That was a different life. Chelsea stopped packing and faced him. You were Spider there. Adam nodded slowly. And I survived. Chelsea crossed her arms. But those memories could drag you back. Adam stepped closer to her. Nick needs help. Chelsea's voice softened. And what about you? What if helping him destroys the progress you've made? Adam hesitated. That question lingered in the air. Finally, he said quietly, I have to believe I'm stronger than my past. Chelsea studied his face carefully. She wanted to argue more, but she also knew Adam well enough to recognize when his mind was made up. So instead, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Just come back to me, she whispered. Adam held her tightly. I will. But as he stared over her shoulder, a flicker of uncertainty appeared in his eyes. Back at the Newman ranch, Nikki stood near the window looking out over the property. Victoria had already begun preparing for her flight to Milan's. Everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. Victor kidnapping Jack, Nick heading toward danger, and the entire Newman family standing on the edge of another war. Nikki whispered quietly to herself, Victor, what have you done? At Society, Noah and Sienna finally stood to leave. The mysterious texts from Matt Clark continued to haunt them. As they walked toward the door, Noah checked his phone again. Another message had arrived. He froze. What is it? Sienna asked. Noah slowly showed her the screen. The text read, Vegas will be interesting. Sienna felt a chill run down her spine. Matt knows, she whispered. Noah nodded grimly. Which means this confrontation is coming sooner than we thought. Later that night, Nick sat alone in his car outside his house. The small baggie of pills rested in his hand again. He stared at it for a long moment. Part of him knew he should stop, but another part whispered that he needed the strength, needed the calm, needed the numbness. Finally, he swallowed another pill, then started the engine. Vegas awaited, and somewhere out there, Matt Clark was waiting too. Across the city, Adam stood by the window of his apartment, staring at the dark skyline of Genoa City. Chelsea had fallen asleep on the couch behind him. Adam's mind raced with memories of his past life in Las Vegas. The underground casinos, the lies, the dangerous people, and Riza. He whispered quietly to himself, let's hope the past stays buried. But deep down, I knew it rarely did. Far away in an unknown location, a dim light flickered inside a locked room. Jack Abbott sat tied to a chair, frustration burning in his eyes. Victor Newman stood across from him calmly. You should know by now, Jack, Victor said coolly, I always get what I want. Jack glared at him. This will destroy everything, Victor. Victor's expression never changed. That remains to be seen. The battle for power in Genoa City had only just begun. And before it ended, every family involved would pay a price.